Okay, so for those of you who are watching online, if you'd like to join this event, the link is in the comments. So I know that also a lot of people sort of listen while they're working and just sort of come to listen and don't really want to appear on the screen. But the reason why these events are especially one of the reasons why these events are being streamed is so that it is recorded online, and it creates a bit of visibility for those who are present in the recordings. And as part of the Design for Tomorrow initiative, of course, my main belief is that collectively we are stronger. And so I really do believe in networks and communities and collaborating. And I found a wealth of resources in networks and communities, and also people offering mentorship and all kinds of things happening. So as designers, if you're newer to the field and maybe don't know all of this, there is a lot of value in connecting with like-minded people to discuss about topics that you find valuable, and also to sort of run ideas and concepts by. And what's great about network and community events like this is that it is not like a conference where there's money involved and that sort of motivations. It really is just to connect and work on the human connection, actually. Collaborate. I think through collaboration we can achieve a lot more than we do without collaboration. And I think while I like certain things about championship and that sort of bubble that it encompasses, I do think that together we're also more able to achieve certain things. So, for example, if you look at sport, the people partaking in a particular game, they all agree to partake in that game. And out of that game comes a champion or champions. And so it is a collective thing. And as designers, collectively, we can do great things. And I fully back that up with every bit of my being. So, all right. So there's about 4 minutes left. If you want to join now. We'll start soon. So I will already start sharing my screen. All right, so we're here today to talk about the human connection. Okay, so with the failing markets and the pandemic and the rise of AI, I think many of us are sort of feeling the insecurities of job security, financial security, and also systemic security. Talks of wars and all of that. I think there is a level of stress in all industries. And today with my talk, I hope to reassure you and maybe to inspire you and also maybe to motivate you by sharing with you something that's a little bit more unusual, but that stems from a very human and real place. So who am I? I'm Candice Storm. I'm an identity experience creator and the founder of Design in Focus, multimedia channel and professional platform. I was born in South Africa. I've lived in Madeira, which is a Portuguese island, and currently I reside in the Netherlands. So I've got a background briefly in law and then mainly in public relations, design, UX, and product and project management. So I've spent 14 years across a range of industries, including government, non-government, retail, marketing, and tech. And I've worked on different types of products as well, such as B2C communications, software as a service, B2B communications, government to government, and government to public. Now, what is the human connection in an increasingly digital world? So we are connected. We are connected through products, and we are also reliant on our devices. We have our mobiles, we have our laptops, and all kinds of communication, which is all technology, and we rely on it. And then we also have, for example, the digital products, such as the Adobe Suite, Figma, Miro, and so forth for designers, but also social media and, all of the tools that you find as a person online. And so in essence, we are digital. So the handprint of design, we are digitally active, and we also live in a world that is digital. And when you look at that, design bridges the gap between creativity and logic, and it's also applied in the biological context as well as the technological context. So basically, in biological sense, we design our agriculture, we design our parks and, flora and fauna projects. And technologically, it is all the apps, it's all the devices, it's all of the stuff that sort of makes life great in essence of what it is. So before we start, we're going to start with a little game. Let's see, how many are we here? We're 2 in this call. So typically this would work if there are a little bit more people. So I'm not sure if it would work, but at least the logic will be explained. So we're going to play a little game, and I want you to pick a seat, A or B. So in the comments, you would write A or B, and then you would get some instructions that either relate to A or B, and you can only act with the instructions applicable to you. So the instructions is that we're both facing each other, and we're looking at different screens. There is a screen to the left, and that's the B, and there's a screen to the right, and that's the A. So when the TVs come up next, this is where you're looking. So the yellow seats, you see the left TV, and the pink seats, you see the right TV. And then we'll start with a couple of questions, and I want you to look at the TVs for inspiration to answer those questions. And you may only look at the TV that you're facing according to the letter that you chose. So first, I want you to think of a winning shape, and then write your comment your answer in the comments. Then I want you to pick a color and write your questions in the comments. And then I'd like you to choose a letter and write your your answer in the comments. And the same for the fourth question, which is choose a winning number. Now, I don't expect that we'll be able to really play this game as engagingly as if this had been, a live event, but yeah, let's just assume for here now. So let's see, I have some comments here, and yeah, Emma, I guess because you chose A, the TV that you see, as you answered correctly, you chose based on the numbers and the letters and the shapes and symbols that's on that screen, while as the other side had the winning criteria right in front of them. And now the next question, and you can the next question is, are we lost to AI and the technological advances of today? And again, you would see an answer to that. And those who previously had had a bunch of pictures and numbers on the screen, but no answer, they would be right in this case, and those who in the previous round was correct would be wrong in this case. So what this demonstrates is that there is sort of like there's a myriad of ways. We're in the same room, we're listening to the same talk, and yet we're getting different stimuli. And so whenever you're in any situation, yeah, the perception that you have shapes your reality, and your perception relies on your senses. And we as designers, we work with the senses. Design is a sensual activity because it's visually pleasing, or it sounds great, or it feels amazing. So our primary focus is on emotion. So the point is that perspective and interpretation, that gives us our reasoning, and our reasoning is how we created our logic. And our logic is really a duality, and it's based on things like yes, no, good, bad, cause and effect. And there's simple binding laws that it's governed by, and the human mind makes up those laws through its senses. So whatever reality is reality is much, probably there is a possibility that reality extends beyond what we perceive, and in many cases, like demonstrated here, it can be mental as well. So logic is pretty simple, the logic that we've created, and that is why we were able to mechanize it long before we started mechanizing creativity. I think, for example, a calculator or computer, these are all things that operate by a certain logic, and that logic is based on duality. Humans are not simple. Our logic is, but we are not. So here's a great example. In Copernicus's day, we burned alive those who believe that the world was round. And then in a twist of fate, today in the modern world, we roast those who think it's flat. So in essence, our opinions, our beliefs shape what we think. The reality is that the earth exists, whether it's round or whether it's flat. We are here. We can mentally think in our logic that it's round or that it's flat, but regardless of what we think, it still is. And that is what is creation. That is the infinity of creation. It can be anything at any time. And this is why it has also been difficult to automate. So with the infinity of creation, I want you to think of your design, and I want you to think of what it's composed of, the logic and the creativity. And then if you're in UX like I am, or any kind of design, you just give it your own twist, and you've got infinite possibility. So actually, when I made this slide, I didn't include any examples, but through the Design for Tomorrow Awareness Initiative, I did find a prime example of this, and that came from Lika Balin, and she's basically created a business called Visual Contracts. And what she does is that she makes contracts, business and other contracts that we have to engage in, accessible through design. So basically, she creates the infographics that make the difficult jargon of the legal system more comprehensible, and therefore people sign, they know what they're signing. So with this in mind, think of how you could leverage design. What sort of problems can you solve with design? And then if we look at the logic of business, value exchange. So I actually did a talk about this last week, and I delved a little bit more into value and values, and the whole notion of my perception of value. Now, a lot of people are saying that AI will replace a lot of existing jobs, and they're sort of scared of how this technology is interfering with the biology, so the humans, the cold, hard, machine versus the fragile mortality of humanity. While AI is only logic and it lacks senses, and senses creates the creativity. So with a machine, it relies on a steady set of information that is valid over and over and over. Whereas with humans, we are more responsive with our senses. And so I think my perception is that AI is not really the biggest issue we face, as long as we remain human. And how do you remain human? What is the human connection? So I would say always connect with yourself. Before you connect with others, you must connect with yourself. We interpret the world through the external stimuli that we have, our senses, and these senses find other people, and those other people impact these senses. So perhaps they make you feel shame, perhaps they make you feel joy. All of this, shapes how you think. So when you understand yourself fully and you're very honest about your motivations and your place in the world, you will recognize that in others, and in that way you can connect. So with this, I challenge you to get into the champion mindset and design your bright tomorrow, physically and digitally. You can do that by considering the creative, the human, and the logic. You have the creativity, you have the human element as designers, and you understand logic. And the best way that I can push you towards that, to leverage that for yourself, is through unity. Collectively, we are stronger. So if you look at really big corporations, most of them are big because they merged and acquired, and sort of, if you look at consultancies, they're sort of just working together as well. Now, we as singular entrepreneurs might find, oh my gosh, there's so much competition. But actually, if you find collaboration, if you find others with similar interests, you can combine and collectively grow that way. So what am I basing all of this on, and what makes it more than just, some advice coming from somebody who's read a couple of books? Well, I have survived an 8-year battle of victimization, and it has felt like an eternity. So I am a mother, and I encountered certain situations which threatened that, and I perceive that to be destructive. As a mother, my main priority is life-giving, while as the other side was life-taking, and that caused me a lot of turmoil, and it caused me to want to take my life, and it caused me want to give up life. And I felt pretty helpless and unable to do anything about the situation. And for a while, it actually got to me. And this is a photo of in 2014 or 15, 2015 photo. And this is my daughter and I before, smiling, happy, enjoying life. And the smiles had been wiped off our faces. And reflecting on this, I saw the pleasure this brought to the other side. And with this, I started validating, I thought, is this right? And of course, I came to the conclusion that it's not. And I went inside myself, questioning, did I deserve it? What did I do? Where and where? And ultimately, by all of the criteria, there was no validation. So it was not valid. It was unlogical. And this is another sort of mechanic I wish to really convey, is that behavior is not always logical because it's biological. So the machine will always behave in sort of logical ways, but humans do not behave in logical ways. We have emotions, we have instincts, and we have our own logic. So this changes the dynamic quite a lot. And I will show you some examples of where logic is the same, to showcase that, logic is very simple. So if we take religion and science, these are two very opposing things in our world. Some religious people are like, oh, science is evil, and some scientists say, oh, religious people are evil, and maybe both are a little bit evil. Who's to say? But if you boil down their concepts and their visions, the visions that they paint with their words into a singular idea, this would be what it would look like. So religion says there was nothing and then there was something. That's God's work. And then in science, they say there was nothing and then there was something, and they call it the Big Bang's work. But it's the same image. It's the same the same mental model. Now, another example, if you ask religion, hey, how do you know God exists? They will say, well, we have this holy book called the Bible. And then you ask scientists, and they're like, well, we've got all of these papers and all of these books, and it's the same principle. Now, in religion, when you say to a religious person, hey, why does God not speak to me? They will say, well, God only speaks to the chosen. It's only special people who understand religion. And you get to science and you say, hey, but this stuff doesn't make sense to me. And they will say, well, it only makes sense to the intellectual. So again, only special people. So what is human? Well, I think the human is quite complicated, but there's, what we're focusing on, what I said earlier about championship and achievement. What is human growth and human, the value of human creativity? Here it is. So very basically, create, innovate, and design. In the first image, you see a very rudimentary bed. It's made out of straw. It's got some planks banged together, and it's a bed. Probably if you're sleeping on it, there's some bugs. I don't know if it's comfortable. So we innovated and we built mattresses and we used different materials. We tested it and out comes the mattress. Now, a couple of years into the future, we no longer need to innovate on mattresses, maybe a little bit, but we don't need the innovation going from straw to a mattress. We already have that. And now we focus on perfecting it, and this is design. So online, I'm not sure if this sound plays. I did notice that it was not playing in a previous talk. So I will switch my speaker on and hope that you hear it. Look around you. Start by seeing what's in your direct vicinity. Chances are you have at least a couple of pieces of furniture around, some clothes, the device you're using to see or listen to this. Now look a little beyond. Look at the walls that surround you, the faucets, the doors, and systems. If I were to bet that at least 90% of what you see has been created, innovated, and or designed, would I win the bet? And that's just what you see directly. What lies beneath and beyond on all other levels, you will find CID in the greater majority also. You do not, for example, see the factory where the bricks of your home were created, the equipment, the processes, or the interactions, none of which would be possible without CID influence. That which gives us the most power as a collective started through simple creations, scribbles on cave walls. Who cares what cavemen did? Well, those scribbles evolved into recognizable symbols, which we use today to exploit our intelligence to its full capacity. If we did not have the written word, would we be able to create all that is in our environments as is? Yes, it may be undeniable that we cause a lot of havoc and devastation with our creations, but comparative to your existential state, just how valuable do you find your waste disposal system? Transportation, accommodation, clothing, and even food. If you were to create just half of what enables you to enjoy life yourself, would you be able to? Do you know how to make a cell phone, a car, a home? Would you be able to mine the raw materials, process it into usable products, and then construct whatever it is that you want? Build a home, maybe, some form of transportation, but a cell phone, a bit not. And that's just the basics. How about in business? Aside from the obvious, would marketeers be able to sell without creative persuasion? Would the economy exist on the scale that it does without all that's creating demand? Would you be able to sell a pair of shoes that cost less than $1 to make for $420? Would large companies be able to function without the tools and the equipment they use? What makes someone fork out thousands of dollars for a Tesla when they might as well buy a bicycle, which is equally as good for the environment? Money is not necessarily easy to come by, and yet many give it away in exchange for ephemeral experiences and treasures, which are all created, innovative, or designed. Hi, I'm Candice Storm, a South African-born experienced designer living in Amsterdam, a city buzzing with CID from art to technology in all areas of business and society. In the following sessions, I will be exploring the value and worth of CID. Aside from interviews and talks, I will also be creating multimedia on this page, with which I wish to bring you along as I try to find ways to demonstrate the value and impact of creativity, innovation, and design. All right. So I hope those online was able to hear it. But that is an opening statement that I took when I started Design in Focus. So with that, I wish to inspire you to make business human again. Think that if you exist, others like you exist. So if you have a problem, you have a challenge, if you can solve that problem or challenge, others might need you to solve it for them, and therein you can start your business. If you can't beat them, then team up and create the tools that can. And this is, for example, what Lieke Balen did with her visual contracts. A lot of people get into trouble, and there's a lot of challenges in the law, in the legal sector, because of complicated wording and misunderstandings. And people lose their homes, they lose their families, and all kinds of disasters happen because they do not understand it. So by creating this tool, the visual contracts, she's defeating the challenges in the industry and making it better. So really consider making business human again. Exchange value human to human, and you find value by finding what you value. Then you can be assured that others will also value it. And so actually a lot of what's happened with this initiative Design for Tomorrow, I think there's a really big movement in the world. And one example or one proof that I can give to you is Robert Kozma and Don Norman. So Robert Kozma is part of the Impact Collective that I run on Design in Focus. and he's our first North Star creating content on the platform. And he had a conversation with Don Norman. So both of them wrote these two books, which Don Norman himself says it's his book written by another person. So why, and they both published it earlier this year, so at the same time. When you consider this example and really tons more that I can give, you see that they're responding to something that is in existence. There is a need for a better world. There is a need for a brighter future. And a lot of our media is confirming it. A lot of our interactions is confirming it. And I really have a big belief in this due to the coincidences and the tie-ins that I see. So how to apply some of what Don Norman is saying. He says we need to advance knowledge and agency through historic studies, tech and social sciences. And I believe this statement. I think that is a very true statement. There are certain challenges with it, like what is the true historic studies? You know, I have lived in South Africa where our history books changed overnight. What we were taught as children, just we had to say, okay, well, that's all wrong. Here's a new history. So history does make it challenging, but if you reflect on your own historic experiences, what have you encountered? What sort of tech do you use, and what is your social what is the learnings of your social interactions? Then you can start to apply this to start becoming more entrepreneurial and sort of connect more. So some of the key words that came out of his talk is to measure resilience and change and collaboration. Now, I have seen quite a bit of what they've seen, I think, and that is also why I decided to start Design in Focus. And here are some of the key ways that I respond to the current existential experience in relation to these keywords. So measure. What I do on Design in Focus on the multimedia channel, I talk to people to find the value and impact of CID in business and society. So CID stands for creativity, innovation, and design. And I make podcasts and write articles and, also invite others to do the same. And I assist in resilience through helping people or supporting people through, for example, networks and communities. When you find others who believe in what you believe or have experienced what you have experienced and you connect, you can stand strong together, and that builds resilience. So the way that I've handled change on the platform is that the platform is different from any other platform out there. So most media platforms, they work by affiliation and sponsorship that changes the content. And in many cases, there's also data exploitations. So with Design in Focus, there is no advertising. We do infoties, and the infoties is the CID professionals coming to talk about the value and impact of their work. So if they have, for example, they offer services and they believe those services to have value and impact, they can come and have it talk about it, or they can write an article about it. And then the next part is collaboration. So on the Design in Focus platform, I support professionals with networks and communities, events, and groups. And all of this started long before I gained with of what Don Norman and Robert Kozma were doing. And it's basically built on my experiences as a designer and having connections with creative people, myself being creative, and also the innovation part. And I started building the platform, what is relevant for me and those I know with similar challenges or challenges that I could support. So if it's relevant for you, it will be relevant for others. And that is the human connection. So very briefly, just to look into design in focus. So it's the value and impact of CID in business and society. And so one of my first podcasts last year, I started around about April last year, and we went live in September. But one of the first participants was Trina Palbe, and she is the founder of the Ethical Design Network. So actually, when I met her and I was doing this podcast and collecting the materials for the podcast, I created these 3 images, which was like a slideshow. And it also demonstrates how I felt about ethics at that time, because when you encounter certain challenges, there's a lot of victim shaming, and sort of whistleblowers get a really hard time. And so ethics is a very challenging conversation to have in connection with success. And so I made this graphic. It is the dark side of the force. But well, things didn't stop there. And in the beginning of this year, through Randstad UX, which is the network that I created for as sort of a flagship to demonstrate to others how they could use the platform to their advantage, I collaborated with Ladies That UX in Amsterdam, and we had a joint event at PwC Experience Center. And that event was also a panel discussion, which I had to set up. And I sent out the communications on the Thursday, calling for panelists. And by the Tuesday, we had selected the panelists, and I had to start turning away people. And I started ideating, how could I give them all a space? Well, in March, we had another live event, and this time it was held at Cognizant. And again, we talked about sort of the good subjects, designing for accessibility, and diving into dark patterns. All this time, I was ideating on all of these people because I couldn't give them all a space. These 2 events housed 6 out of, I don't know, hundreds. And so Design for Tomorrow Awareness Week came about. And this event that you're currently attending is part of the Design for Tomorrow Awareness Initiative. And as you can see, it started off as an awareness week, but it scaled to 6 weeks of events when Don Norman, the father of UX, joined. And we've had some exceptional talent. We've also had up-and-coming talent, people who just want to share ideas. And so it's a really nice initiative that sort of has given many people an ability to raise their voices and talk about what designing for tomorrow looks like for them. So here are a couple of photos from the previous events. I haven't added, so on Monday last month, when we started, there were some photography. We had a live event, but I haven't added any of that. But anyway, so I could not have done any of this without the human connection. The past weeks, for the 6 weeks of the awareness initiative, there is something like 60 events. And a lot of these events, there are panels, and they make up more people than, between 2 and 6. So in total, there has been a lot of activity. And without those people who got involved, and without you who are here to actually participate, it wouldn't, what would it have been? So the human connection is really valuable, and you can do a lot with it. Um, I have a quote, and that is that emotion is the palate of the soul. And now, during this time of AI, I believe this to be more true than ever. We will not succumb to AI because AI does not have emotion, and emotion is how we can control AI. And with that, I wish to end the presentation. And and we can start to have a nice conversation. And those who are online, you're welcome to join the call. But if you have any comments or questions, you can post it below and we'll get to that as well. Hi, Emma. How's your sound looking?
Hi. I found my old earphones and they work, so I can hear you now.
Yeah, very good. So did you manage to get through the whole presentation?
Yeah. I just got everything lined up when you started. Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was really funny when you did the test. I was still feeling really overwhelmed. So you gave the instructions that, okay, you look at this screen, and I'm like, okay, so which screen? Left, right, okay, this one. And then I covered the other one with my chat screen so that I'm not distracted, because I wanted to kind of manage my perception so that I don't get any extra input, because I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So I think that was a really good way to notice how much we control what we actually perceive by just ignoring stuff that isn't for me right now.
yeah, exactly. I've mentioned this in the previous talk, but focus is ignorance. And of course, ignorance is ignorance, and it has a bad reputation for a reason. But yeah, whenever you focus, you need to ignore a lot. And sort of to survive in the world today, we need to focus on the most important things, because there's so many things happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're frozen.
100%. I really enjoyed this talk. And I just wanted to say that I think it's really great that you're kind of making this effort to bring more of these kinds of talks and events to the community, because I mean, I couldn't. I think it's wonderful that there are people who actually are able to kind of put themselves out there and organize things like this, because it's not in my comfort zone at all. So thanks.
Well, it was not in my comfort zone at all either. So last year when I started making podcasts, I mean, I was also in a, sort of coming out of a very bad spot, and I had no confidence, and I was really, really low. And so my first podcast, you can even see I'm like stiff, and I look like a deer with lights in the eyes. And it came about because of one of the driving factors was some projects that I had worked on, and yeah, some opportunities that came up on that. And I needed something. I needed something. And if you look at where I was last year to where I am now, I had 89 connections. I barely ever spoke to anybody. I was inside and isolated all the times. And now I found a lot of great people. I found a lot of support, and I found people who inspire me and people who support me. And the thing is, we are in this comfort zone of protection because of the hurt that we get. But when we do block ourselves off like that, we limit the potential, because yeah, if you have a certain value, you're a person of certain values, and I think we all are, then you can be pretty sure that there are others. And by letting those who conflict with you sort of limit you, or and whether that is people or thoughts or sort of feelings, when you let that limit you, then you miss opportunities. So you can always start small and expand this.
Yeah. I personally, I definitely have to start small, because it's the thing that limits me is definitely my own kind of thoughts, and for me I do recognize the fact that if I find value in something, if it resonates with me, it's going to resonate with other people. But I tend to talk myself out of sharing things anywhere. I'm like, well, if I found this, everybody else has found it already. Why would I share? Why would I bring it up? Why would it be me who does it? If it's important enough, somebody else is going to do it. And that's not really the best way to kind of build.
Well, actually, in my talk last week, Value and Values, I talked about the story of somebody, anybody, nobody, and everybody. So there was a job to be done. You know the story? You're nodding?
I think so.
Yeah, there was a job to be done, and everybody thought somebody would do it. Because anybody could do it, but nobody considered that anybody wouldn't do it. So somebody got really angry and blah blah blah. The fact that you're thinking like that, you can be sure that other people are thinking like that, and if it's limiting you, it's limiting them. So break out of that comfort zone and say, well, and maybe if they are doing it by teaming up, you can collaborate and really grow much bigger, so they're yeah.
And it is so true that this is what's kind of going on all the time around us, and there is a lot of strength to be had in people joining up to do good or to make better choices, because when we don't see that happening, people won't kind of change their patterns or change how they behave, because we are a social species, so we kind of need that.
Yeah, very true. I think there was another thing that I wanted to mention. So actually, I have for the Randstad UX networking community, we have an event every second Saturday of the month called the Breakfast Club. And there we just meet to, if we have a talk that we want to prepare, we can each share for like 10 minutes a presentation or a talk. And then usually we also have conversations about our ideas and talk about, our experiences and our fears. So the last event, we had somebody who was already speaking, and she encountered a bit of harassment. People always making it about her looks. She's blonde, pretty, and then afterwards people will always push that. And then we had one or two presentations where people shared some of their ideas, and then we just had a conversation, and it's very casual, it's not recorded. And that's the beauty of networks and communities. You can find people who are in similar positions and just have a chat, like, I don't, the way that I've developed design in focus is that we can basically do that for free as creatives, innovators, and designers. And the motivation for enabling this for free and without, profit-driven incentives is because I believe that we are the people who shape the world the most. That video that I showed, I think we're basically the foundation. And whatever you do to the foundation happens to the top, and the earthquakes, bad foundations, it all tumbles. And we are in turbulent times, so that is like an earthquake. And if we don't have that solid foundation, then everything can collapse. But yeah, investing in people is investing in the future. It's not just for good, because good is questionable. What you think is good, what somebody else thinks is good. This is also why I did the talk on value and values to say that it's a variable thing. But so I'm already sorry. When we design for the future, when we're thinking of the future, what does it look like? I have a child, and for that future, I want to see prosperity. I want to have her always clothed and fed and, covered. And I want the same for my loved ones and their loved ones. And how do we get there? It's not, that's designing for the future. And I think as designers, as creatives, as innovators, our environments, the communications that we get, like on those screens, often we have these sort of situations that arise that capitalism is bad and money is bad and business is bad. We're just people-centered, but it's actually a duality. There's no business without people. So people is the foundation. And so if the people get it right, the business will come right as well. And if business is successful, if we can create actual success, then there will be no recessions, there will be no challenges, because we have it, we've got it. And so tell me a little bit about you, Emma. What do you do, and sort of why have you joined this?
So I'm a UX professional. I've been working for since 2006 as a UX professional in different kinds of roles and companies. I was an entrepreneur for a few years. Now I'm working full-time at a client company where I'm, well, it's this is kind of, well, so one thing that I'm conflicted about there is that it's an ad tech, so digital ad services. And this is not necessarily something anybody wants more of in the society, but on the other hand, there is like the flip side of, okay, so businesses need to be able to tell people about their products. So it is a good thing. And there are a lot of things that can also be done in that sector for sustainability, like just decreasing ad size, images, videos, so that there is less load on database usage and communications for the ads, and then also just making the tools better for people to use, so that then they are able to kind of have happier working lives. So this is like there is a lot there that is kind of interesting to me as well, and is a part of building a better society for designers, because also the people who design ads are designers too, and they deserve to work with good tools, even if they're working on ads, which is something that is kind of a conflicting thing for me, that it's somehow hard to work on. But still, I enjoy the company and I enjoy the work. In addition to that, I'm working with a startup, or another startup. They're also a startup, smaller startup, very part-time, kind of like in a founder position, which is more like a design for tomorrow type of a effort, because we're building, or we have built, an app for people to so it's for the what's it called, like the normal workforce, people who don't use computers to work, people who use their hands and machinery to do their work. And it's the idea there is that this would be a knowledge sharing tool for people who work with their hands, so they can use their mobile phones to record the best way that they're doing their work and communicate to ask about issues and just kind of share the knowledge on inside a company about best practices and things like that. So
sounds very interesting. So the first thing that struck me was, and I had this as well, because I have designed ads, and at one company I even designed clickbait, and I didn't last. I stepped out of there really quickly. But at the same time, we need the jobs. So, my take is that most of the professions that exist because there's a need. So it's got a core that is the basic need. So law, for example, we need lawmakers, but now it becomes a prestigious thing, for example, like with law. And people study the law just for their reputation. Now, these people don't care about the actual law. And here you start seeing where the law is manipulated and exploited. And that's the same with design. It's the same with advertising. If there is something cool happening in the world, I want to know about it. If you're going to use ads to mentally or emotionally abuse me into certain actions, then maybe there's a bit more of a challenge there, but that relates more to the exploitation than to the actual thing.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing that I do see, like the company where I work with, there's a strong kind of interest in making sure that everything is done at least by the law, and whenever possible better than, and taking care of privacy and everything, that there is no extra or additional like kind of following of people, what they click on, whatever, that it's all kept to like reasonable procedures and everything, so that makes it a lot easier to work in such a industry when you know that it's not explicitly a part of that type of exploitation.
And I mean, that business exists because they recognize that there's a need for it. So the most successful businesses are the ones who respond to human needs and not so much abuse the human needs. So there are a couple of businesses in the world today that is exploitive. And especially with this affiliations and link tracking, this person is checking out suicide. Let's give all of the suicide products to them. That's an ethical dilemma for anybody, not anybody, because a lot of people are like, well, it's me or them. And makes sense, right? It's a very basic human reaction. In any life form, any living, moving life form, animals, insects, humans, when you threaten their life, they will attack or they will fight back to their full capacity. And the nature of the world that we live in, all things that are living must consume other things. There isn't a single living thing that does not depend on the death of another thing. And so at the basis, there is a very savage nature to the world. And, we soften that with the compassion and the sort of considerations we have. And sometimes you need to just feed your family, and then you do what you need.
Exactly.
And then I think another thing that came up, that has come up during the conversations, is sort of mental models. And a lot of people talk about the elite, this, and they're going to do that and this and that and that. But it's also sort of like when you're tackling luxury mindset, the people who have luxury mindset are, everybody wants their money, so they tell them what they want to hear, and then these people sort of start to lose touch with reality because they're living in these bubbles of words that they hear and images that they see affirming them. And so when we are in the positions to sort of do that sort of work, it does also come back to us because,
Mhm.
we're sort of dependent on the financial aspect. And so the best that you can actually ever do is just the incremental adjustments, like what your company is doing.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and this is very, very true. I had an idea while you were speaking. Now I forgot it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's always easier to like have conversations where you're sort of more in a casual space and you also know each other. So that was quite a long presentation with a lot of talking, and we're discussing quite a big subject. It's
Yes,
actually
definitely.
yeah, I have a whole panel on this. um, the unraveling the essence of creation. So we're diving really into the philosophy of design and design thinking. I think that's coming up today or tomorrow.
Cool. I'll
Yeah,
look it up. Yeah,
yeah,
I've been a bit swamped, but today I should have time to actually go through the different events that are still there, upcoming, and that I can still have time for. So I will definitely look at that one.
yeah. And also,
Saturdays.
so all of these events have been recorded.
Mhm.
Some of them I need to cut out like waiting times in the beginning. So I'll edit these videos and publish it to the portal. But already on LinkedIn, if it's live streamed like this one, it can be watched back. So if you go to Randstad UX Network and Community, not HQ, but the network and community, and you click on the events, you can sort of see what has been and also
Nice.
find it there. So it's also for those watching online. And, I intend to in the future sort of take short clips from that to focus on the specific topics that came out of it. So it's been 6 weeks. We've had really intense conversations sometimes. And it is a lot to sort of that needs to sink in.
Yeah.
So,
You
yeah.
have, yes, this is a massive project that you have kind of on your shoulders, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're actually repeating next year. So maybe you yourself, want to come tell us how you've gotten on with your company and, demonstrate that. I'd love to hear it.
Oh well,
Uh,
thanks so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
And in the panels, there's still some panels. I think there's a panel called Collectives and Enablers coming up also in the next few days, and that's for sort of companies that that enable people through collectives. So, for example, if you're in advertising, the advertising networks and communities, but also other groups, organizations, people that can sort of enable you. And that's happening actually today at 8:30 CET.
Ooh, I think so. So my company is mostly based in United States, or the where I work, and that means that my my working hours tend to be from like 4 p.m. to like 11 o'clock in the evening or something. So yeah, I probably
Yeah,
can't join then. Let's see.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Mm.
well, and the unraveling the essence of creation, that's also quite late. It's at 7:30 CEST. Development and growth could be an interesting one, and that's at 9 a.m. on Thursday. And there we're sort of also looking into how can we develop and grow the future, and also design empowerment. That's another great one on Friday, where we look at how we can empower design and designers, and also how design and designers can empower industries and people. So I
Cool.
think that'd be interesting for you. I'll leave it
Yeah.
up to you.
Yeah, I'll look through it and see what I can do with my schedule. I do have another really nice thing about where I work is that they do give, it's okay for me to use work time for this type of like UX networking and growth and all that. So it's just a question of when are my meetings and are they overlapping. So
yeah, that's very nice company. I think that's really important to find a company like that.
I agree, definitely.
Yeah. There are few and far in between.
Yes, this is still very much true. Yeah, it's easier, I feel. Well, maybe it's a little bit easier nowadays than it was like 5 years ago still, when even remote working was like very not supported, and everything was about being, well, not every company, not everything, but very much about, are you at your seat for the correct amount of minutes? And that was when I shifted over to being an entrepreneur, because that was just not possible.
No. Yeah, I also had a super micromanaging supervisor, and I mean, and this wasn't even the company, because the company, they had a gym in the office and you were allowed to use it during the workday, and I was not allowed to use it. I had to sit with the team every time. All kinds of, that's sort of like,
yes, I can relate very much. It is, and it was very much, of course, about the actual superiors that you are working with, because they do have the kind of power to say that I expect this of you because it's in your role, that your role is to be present. This is also what was told to me, that, well, maybe the company has a policy of being allowed to work remotely, but we need you in the office.
Yeah. I mean, I think when we come to talking about superiors, I think management is not always a superior. So the word superior, in my dictionary, and this is also why the visual context is so important, because if you look at the legal industry, the jargon changes per area of focus. So, for example, I studied partially law in South Africa, and the law in South Africa is based on Roman and Dutch law, and so, you have to learn where those words come from and what the jargon is. And then in different places, they use different definitions for the same words. So it's made me very focused sometimes on the actual definition of the word, and superior to me means better in character. And I think, with the nature of inheritance, a lot of people can be in positions where they might not be superior, but they might have a management or a directive role. And those businesses, you can always, there's never any flourishing there. And it is what it is,
Yes. I wish I could say more, but I'm slightly worried about kind of, when I left there, I did have to sign like an agreement to not talk about specific things, but yes.
I mean, I've also signed agreements, and I think without giving reference to where and when, it's just something that happened. There's no names or nobody mentioned. It could have happened anywhere. So
But it's definitely interesting to see that such companies don't tend to do well in the long term. Let's just put it that way. It's sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but
sort of strategies that I've seen in some companies, and some of it is also consultant. It's like I didn't work there. I just saw the sort of figure, the data. And what happens is that our nature with the in-group, out-group mentality, we're very prone to that as humans, and we're prone to that in all genders,
Yes.
all colors, all religions.
Mm-hmm.
In the past and in today. So in the past, you, for example, had the royals and they had the serfs, and then you had the slavers and the slaves. And today you have, in many instances, the luxury mindset versus people. And the thing is, with the luxury mindset, of course, they get detached and then the business starts to fail. But there are also always people who want to make money, so they'll catch them and say, okay, well, we can improve this. And then they take in the new people. The new people sort of go through the abuses, or they're like going out, but the company goes forward. So yeah.
Yes.
So from a young age, I think what we really should be telling younger people, young professionals, is that they really need to resonate with the company. It needs to, the people that you surround yourself with determine your life experiences. And those people have certain characteristics that are dangerous to you, then it's best to avoid it and to recognize that. I mean, I've been in a position where I said I would rather go out on the street than accept this. And I was ready to become a homeless person. I even worked at delivering food for a while, but
Yeah.
I'm stubborn, and I'm,
Good job.
I stood my ground. And so I think it is challenging, and you hear a lot of threats, and you definitely face a lot of opposition. But ultimately, what you could consider is that you're either going to stand and go out in a bang, or you're going to stand and change. So in life, in certain situations, you're bound to suffer.
Yes.
Can accept that so the sooner you start mentally preparing for, okay, suffering is the way of life, this world, everything lives on the death of something else, you build that resilience. And by sort of taking on a sport, I've never done sports. I was a nerd at school. I was bullied. I was not cool. But taking on this sort of winning mentality of championship, competition. Okay, you're surviving this hurdle. You're surviving this hurdle, and even though it hurts, and you're still moving on, that is the sign of mastery. And so that's sort of what I was really trying to dig into when I was talking about, considering a championship and leveraging that as a tool to overcome the challenges that we faced, the difficulties. Okay, it's a beat, it's a punch, it's a slap, next slap, but you're not going to pull me down. You can slap, I'm going until I can't go. And then I'll just breathe until I can't breathe.
Yes.
But yeah, defiance, determination, resilience. Yeah, if they're valid in causing harm, then you're valid in causing harm to disable it. That's
Exactly. That there is one of the big things that kind of we need to learn as a society is how to stand up to harm in a way, how to say that, okay, so compassion is at the root of like a better world, but that does not mean that if you are incompassionate, if you are harmful, that I will just sit there and understand that, okay, it is coming from your troubled childhood, so I'm just gonna understand this behavior now. It's okay if you understand where it's coming from. It just does not mean that you should sit there and take it or leave them. So there is standing up to injustice and hatred and malevolence and all the wrong that you see is super, super, super important. And it's not kind of different from compassion or something that is different from. It's more like the flip side of compassion is awareness, so that you're aware of what is happening around you and you can see that this is wrong. So then it's in a way, it's also like in a broader sense compassionate to the wrongdoer, to express that this is a limit and this is not okay and this is disruptive and not in a good way. So to stop that.
Well, that's what I was saying about luxury mindset. You know, when all your interactions confirm that you're right and you can do nothing wrong, even though you become tyrannical in some cases, there's the possibility that you might become, you know, really doing bad things. There's also an onus on those who got you there. So that, you know, we live in a world of cause and effect. Now, if you stand through all that and you say I can't think of a specific person or instance. I'm just generally speaking to here. If you say to somebody, or let's take a corporation. Corporations always have bad images. So let's say there's a really dodgy corporation and it's, you know, doing really bad stuff. All of these people come to work there and they give them all of these promises, and then, you know, the board sort of decides based on this information. Now you come, you filter through all of that and you give them the truth. You deliver that sort of reality bite. In my opinion, most of them will change. Very few people want to be bad. Very few people go out intentfully bad. And those who are intentfully bad, something has gone wrong. Now, where there are things that's gone wrong, there are solutions. Where there are solutions, you can get paid. There you have a business case. So solving the problems, not aiding the problems. I think that's the best. That ties the compassion and the awareness. It ties it all together because, well, I'm a mom. And you can bet that my kid has done some pretty nasty things sometimes. Any mother will tell you it's one of the hardest things in the world. And I myself, when I remember myself as a teenager, I weep for my mother. I wish she was here next to me so that I could always take care of her and just love her so deeply, which, yeah, in my youth, when she passed, I was like, oh, terrible mom. But the thing is, we love our children. You know, they make mistakes. It doesn't mean that, well, now you're going to be taken out of the equation forever, but they might get time out and just go take some time to reflect and think. And yeah, you know, I think you can still be pretty compassionate while informing and teaching lessons and, you know, sort of building society. Because, well, if you look at babies, they're not very social until you train them to be social. You know, if you never train them to not hit people, they will hit people. And I've seen a lot of kids who their mothers are like, well, they don't mean any harm, just let them do it. And they go and bully other kids and they become little tyrants. And you know, who do you blame? You know, and it's the same with businesses, you know. I totally believe that, it's up to us who encounter the challenges to solve them as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so actually I'd love to see you in particular. There's still some people online, but from our conversation I would love to see you next month on the second Saturday. Also just to really hear more about what you're doing, because it does sound interesting. I mean, you can take some time to go into details if you're ready, but otherwise you can come join us and maybe you can give a presentation in the future.
Let's see. Yeah, that would be nice. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay.